All right, let's dive into something that's totally shaking up how we think about money: decentralized finance. You've probably heard it called DeFi. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and really get into what it is and where it's headed.
So let me just start with this one question. What if you could be your own bank? I mean, really think about that. What if you didn't need a bank or a brokerage or any of that to borrow, lend, or trade? Well, that's it. That's the huge, radical promise at the very heart of DeFi, a system where you and only you are in control.
For basically all of modern history, finance has meant one thing: middlemen. You've got your banks, your brokers, your exchanges. They're all intermediaries. DeFi comes along and just says, nope, it's designed to just cut them out entirely. This whole idea is called disintermediation, and it's all about letting people connect and transact directly with each other, peer-to-peer.
So let's really put these two worlds side by side. You've got traditional finance, or TradFi, where big institutions are in charge. They hold your money, they set the rules, they decide who gets access and when. Then you have DeFi, which just flips that whole script. You're not dealing with a company, you're interacting with software. You hold your own assets in your own digital wallet. And maybe the biggest deal? The system's open to anyone, anywhere in the world with an internet connection 24/7. No holidays, no closing bells.
Okay, so how in the world does this actually work? Without a bank or some central server processing everything. It definitely sounds a bit like magic at first, but it's not. It really comes down to three key pieces of technology that all fit together perfectly.
So it all starts with the foundation, the blockchain. The simplest way to think about it is like a public spreadsheet or a digital ledger that's copied thousands of times across a huge network of computers. And here's the key. Once a transaction is added to that ledger, it can't be changed or deleted. It's locked in. This makes it an incredibly secure and transparent highway for all this financial activity to travel.
On top of that highway, you have the vehicles. And these are the real engines of DeFi, smart contracts. The vending machine analogy is perfect here. You know how a vending machine works, right? You put in your money, you press the button, and the machine automatically gives you your snack. No cashier needed. Smart contracts are just like that, but for finance. You send your crypto, the code checks that the rules of the deal are met, and bam, the trade or the loan or whatever it is happens automatically. No banker, no broker, no loan officer, just pure code.
So how do you, the user, actually interact with all this stuff? Well, that's where dApps come in. They're decentralized applications. They look and feel just like the apps on your phone, but there's a huge difference. An app like Twitter or your banking app is owned and controlled by a company. A dApp runs on the blockchain itself, built on those smart contracts. That means no single company owns or controls it.
Okay, so we've got the tech down. A blockchain foundation, smart contracts is the engine, and dApps as the interface. But what can you actually do in this new financial world? What does the ecosystem look like today?
Well, it turns out pretty much everything you can do in the old system, plus some new things you can't. You've got what are called decentralized exchanges, or DEXs, like Uniswap, where you can swap assets instantly. There are lending and borrowing platforms like Aave or Compound where you can earn interest or take out loans. You can even get into really complex stuff like derivatives or do things like yield farming to earn rewards. It's a brand new financial playground, and it's built on code.
And believe me, this isn't just some small niche experiment anymore. The growth has been absolutely explosive. The total amount of money locked into these DeFi systems went from less than $1 billion in 2019 to, get this, over $90 billion by early 2022. That kind of meteoric rise isn't just noise, it's a huge signal that something fundamental is shifting in finance.
But, and this is a really big but, all that incredible innovation and crazy growth comes with another side of the story. The promise of DeFi is massive, but you can't ignore the fact that the perils are just as big. So let's just quickly recap the good stuff. The promise. The upsides are super compelling, right? You cut out the middleman, you get lower costs. You're trading directly, peer-to-peer. The whole system is global and always on. Everything is transparent on the blockchain, and because the code is open, innovation happens at lightning speed.
But this is where it gets tricky, and this quote really nails the core issue. DeFi has thrived in the lack of rules and regulations. That freedom is exactly what allowed it to grow so fast. But the flip side is crucial. Users, however, do not receive the protection benefits of transacting with regulated intermediaries. In other words, when things go wrong in DeFi, you're completely on your own.
And things can and do go very wrong. Remember those smart contracts? Well, they're just code, and code can have bugs, which hackers can exploit for millions. The space is a magnet for cyber attacks and scams. The prices of these assets are wildly volatile. And maybe the scariest part for most people, there is no customer service. There's no one to call. If you make a mistake and send your money to the wrong address, it's just gone. Forever.
So, with all these high-stakes risks, it was really only a matter of time before regulators started paying very close attention. And this brings up this totally fascinating new puzzle for them. How on earth do you regulate a system that was specifically designed to have no one in charge?
You're seeing major global players trying to figure this out. The World Economic Forum, for example, put out this whole policy toolkit. They're basically telling governments, hey, you need to find a balance here. They want a technologically neutral approach, which is a fancy way of saying make rules that protect people without killing the amazing innovation that makes DeFi so special. It's a really delicate dance.
Now, if you want to see this in action, look at the European Union. They've been way out in front, building a whole regulatory roadmap. It kicked off back in 2020 when they proposed MiCA, that's the big markets and crypto assets law. Then they launched a pilot program for the tech, which became active in 2023, all leading up to the main MiCA regulation taking full effect around 2024. They're not messing around.
And a really smart part of their plan is this thing called the DLT Pilot Regime. You can think of it as a regulatory sandbox. It's a 6-year experiment. It lets companies try out trading things like stocks and bonds on the blockchain, but with strict caps on how big they can get. This gives regulators a chance to watch, learn, and collect data in a controlled way before they write the final permanent rule.
So, when you put it all together, you realize this brings us right to the central drama playing out in finance today. It's this high-wire act, a balancing act between two incredibly important but competing goals.
And here it is. This is the core conflict. On one hand, everyone wants to encourage all that amazing innovation from DeFi, the efficiency, the ability to include more people in the financial system. But on the other hand, regulators have a fundamental job to do, ensure the system is stable and that consumers are protected from scams and collapses. Finding the perfect balance between these two sides, well, that's the whole game right now. Which leaves us with a billion-dollar question for the future of all of this. Is regulation going to be the thing that tames DeFi's wild revolutionary spirit, the very thing that made it so exciting? Or could smart regulation actually be the key that finally unlocks its true potential, making it safe and trusted enough for everyone to use, and truly creating a more open financial system for the world? We're watching it unfold in real time.